All right. Peace and blessings, all praises to the Most High. Now, I want you to check out this video of a beachfront brawl of a bunch of white people in Polk County, Florida. Now, this is an example of white people at their best or at their worst, however you want to look at it. Now, this happened about 2 or 3 days ago, and there's no national coverage or outrage about this group of people who have come to this particular part of the beach. Many neighbors complain that they always come out there and fight, but nevertheless, they have been able to do so. Now, I'm probably going to have to censor the video because there are a bunch of scantily clad adults, running around fighting, getting knocked out. Like, it is an melee. Now, I'll put the video in the description so you guys can see it in its uncensored nature. But I'm also going to let you hear from the sheriff, who's going to describe these events, past and the present, of white people just acting all out criminals, thugs, animals, with all of this violence that has no place in our society. Listen at this video, and then I'll be back. Now, once again, I'm using this video in fair use for literary and commentary purposes only, but just check it out.
A week ago, at this disturbance, these folks kind of ended up at the point. And it started with talking to each other and screaming and hollering at each other. And then they got to fighting up on the land. Oh, they were fighting. If you can see where part of the scrum occurred, there's one guy laying on the ground knocked out between two of our no trespassing signs. So our investigation took us to arrest them. Now we have Tim Gooding here. He's our sucker puncher. He'll run up behind you and knock you out cold. He knocked another person out into the water. In addition to that, this Peyton Ely, who's 19, we charged him by affidavit a couple of months ago when he called up Uber Eats, ordered some beer, and walked through people's yard out to the road to get the beer to go back to the lake. Listen to me, folks. This is long past a joking matter. We've coached, we've pled, we've begged, and once again, you see what we got. A bunch of kids have gone to jail. These guys are 23, 19, 21. Richard's 40. He's way old enough to know better. 22, 21, 21, and 17. Gavin Gooding is Tim Gooding's juvenile brother. So he picked up, in addition to riot, disorderly conduct, affray, he got a contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Nate Land, and once again, all these folks were friends at one time. The bottom line to this is you go, oh, what's the big deal? I want you to think about this. I want you to think that you go home this afternoon or this weekend, and you're in your backyard, and these folks, whether they're in boats or vehicles, pull up to the edge of your property, put on their music to blast, using the F word, with your children there, and that goes on all afternoon. And then they roll out in a big mob into your yard and fight. And if you're not fighting, you can do other things that start with an F, like this in the yard. We're over it.
All right, so there you hear Sheriff, and I think his name is Grady Judd, talking about all of these teams that he obviously knows. And you heard him say that we have begged and we have pleaded, and it stops now. Now imagine if that was a bunch of black kids out there at the lake every other week out there fighting. They say these kids got in a fight in early March. They left a bar and went out there fighting. You heard the young brother, or you heard him say that, you know, one of the young kids came and ordered Uber Eats with beer, walked through people's yard and went out to the lake. Like, there's other videos of the neighbors complaining. You heard that there were kids out there. Now, mind you, this happened at 3 p.m. And the funny thing about it, you hear him talking about the music, right? And I had to edit that out too for copyright purposes. But they were actually playing Snoop Dogg's Gin and Juice. He rolling down the street, smoking Indo, sipping on. That is what they were playing. And that's what probably really irritated the sheriff. Playing their music. He really wanted to say, playing that music. And so this whole thing, it's comical in a way, because they know that these kids go out there. Just like when I was coming up, we had a stretch of William Street where the white kids can go and party and drink and race cars and fight and beer. And the next morning, just you see all beers over there. None of them never got in trouble, because that is where, you know, the white kids party. But let us go out there. It was going to be trouble. Like, and anybody who was growing up in that time, no, I sound like I'm growing up in the 60s or whatever. But, you know, the sheriff, and this is once again not the first instance. I'm going to play you a little bit more of his press conference, because he's going to tell you what some of these white people were doing on other occasions, which sometimes lands to the savagery, I would say, for lack of a better word. Of, you know, some of these people, especially Richard. You say Richard, not this Richard. You said Richard is 40. He's old enough to know better. So Richard out there 40, fussing, fighting, and partying with some teenagers. So you know what he got going on. But just take a listen to Sheriff Grady Judd a little bit before he went into what they were doing this time. This is what they have been doing a while back. Just check it out.
Or a piece and showed a picture of someone defecating in someone's yard. And I got all of this, but they were in the bushes and all that. You're in somebody's backyard going to the bathroom. And then we've got these pictures. Okay? Now, I don't know if he's saying, hey, let me help you out of the tree. The private property sign, I guess they thought that was only for the bird. Maybe you should say, hello, Mom, what do you think? Or this is up close and personal. Or what about this? What are you doing? You playing hide and seek? That's interesting. Or maybe she's saying, do you need a beer? But she's whispering it to him real quiet like. You know what I'm saying? So this conduct is happening in the middle of the afternoon in people's backyards where they're trespassing, or on a boat where she's standing in the water adjacent to people's homes, where there are people who are trying to enjoy their own life, where there are people with children, and this kind of sexual activity is happening in the public. So we've tried to work with people, but the game's over. And I'll tell you why the game's over. I want to show you this sign. What we're going to talk about today happened on a lot where we have at least 15 of these signs. It's in an area of a vacant lot where they pull up to, and instead of staying in the water, where there's a loophole, as long as their feet are in the water, they can be at your back door. But then they get up onto people's property. You see, this sign says, by order of the sheriff. This is not a suggestion. So a week ago, we received a 911 call where there were a group of individuals wants to be, again, being raucous and out of control and fighting. By the time the deputies arrived, they had fled. We chased down one boat, and there were two people there that said, hey, yeah, a couple of guys had a fight, but it's broken up and it's cool, and they wouldn't cooperate. But our Marine Patrol folks, who are the very best, got into this investigation because they created a significant disturbance once again. So I want to tell everyone, so mom and dad and friends can be very impressed. Here's who we've arrested. Now, let me go over this for you. These groups of people were at one time friends. And apparently back in March, there's a local bar called the El Rodeo Bar where a fight occurred, and there were some criminal charges filed. Well, some of the group didn't like the fact that there were criminal charges filed, and we're looking into tampering with evidence. But now, a week ago, at this disturbance, these folks kind of ended up at the point. And it started with talking to each other and screaming and hollering at each other. And then they got to fighting up on the land. Oh, they were fighting. If you can see where part of the scrum occurred, there's one guy laying on the ground, knocked out, between two of our no trespassing signs. So our investigation took us to arrest them. Now we have Tim Gooding here. He's our sucker puncher. You know, he'll run up behind you and knock you out cold. He knocked another person out into the water.
All right, so we're going to.
In addition to that,
you heard it already. Let's go a little further.
Peyton, I want you to think that you go home this afternoon or this weekend, and you're in your backyard, and these folks, whether they're in boats or vehicles, pull up to the edge of your property, put on their music to blast, using the F word, with your children there, and that goes on all afternoon. And then they roll out in a big mob into your yard and fight. And, you know, if you're not fighting, you can do other things that start with an F, like this in the yard. We're over it. Now, I'm going to give you one last warning. Our Marine Patrol people are going to be out there. Some you're going to see, some you're not going to see. But write this down in your little book. We're going to put people in jail this weekend for conduct that we previously tried to warn you about. So go home and get your bond money together right now. You can carry it in your pocket. It'll help you get out of jail quicker. We're going to take you to jail, but also bring enough money, because we're going to tow your truck. We're going to tow your car. We're going to tow your wave runners. We're going to lock y'all up until you figure out that you can't misbehave in the community, that you can't fight, that you can't knock people unconscious. It's over, folks. It's over. You've taken advantage of our good nature of trying to allow people to enjoy the waterway, because I think it's important that you're with your family.
All right, I'm just going to stop it there, man, because Grady Judd is basically admitting that late. We done gave y'all warning after warning, meaning he's let these white people act up on that lake for years and years and years. He said it's no more. We're going to get your bond money together. We're going to lock you up. And if you're talking about bond money, like I said, like those people in Cincinnati are facing $250,000, $500,000 bonds. These people, once again, if they are facing that amount, you know what I mean? They got the money to get out, first of all, because they're hanging out on the lake. There's some rich white kids. I don't know about Polk County, Florida, but if you're hanging out on the lake, if you got boats, you know, that means your parents. And he's basically saying, tell your parents, get you some money, bring more money, because we're going to tow your truck, tow your car. At least you're not putting felony charges on them where it could ruin their life for 40 years or 50 years. Now, that is the discrepancy with these things. Well, sheriff know these kids, okay, we're going to charge them, but we're not going to put charges that's going to ruin their life. You know, because they're teens, they're having fun, they're drunken, and they do this all the time. He's basically admitting that. So that is, once again, the dichotomy of the justice system. And it's so funny when somebody gets knocked unconscious. You see one girl giving somebody the daggone CPR, and she about drunk, man. It's a total scene. Like I said, I had to blur out most of it because I didn't want the video to get sanctioned or restricted by YouTube. But I'm going to put this video in the comments so you can watch it for yourself and just see the sheer savagery, the barbarianism, you know, the niggatry that these white people are displaying right here. But it's definitely funny how this sheriff has said we beg and plead, and you know, we give this is one last warning. You know, we're fed up. It's over. You know, the sheriff seemed kind of freaky because he kept holding up those pictures of my man, you know what I'm saying, getting some brain and whatever they were doing to other people. He kept holding up those pictures. He held them things for a long time. What do you mean? What do you think she's doing? Asking for a beer, whispering closely. Is that for the birds? You know, he was very adamant about, you know, continuously holding them pictures up. So I don't know. I think Sheriff Grady Judd got a little bit of freakiness in his body. But, you know, this is something that, you know, people have sent me a couple of days ago. And, you know, I know that these things happen way more than this video suggests. These things happen way too often. But a lot of times they are not prosecuted. They are not convicted. They are giving warning after warning after warning after warning when they are literally causing a riot. Inciting a riot. That is a riot. That is violence, felony, aggravated battery, all those charges that they always implement in other occasions. We're going to see what these charges are. And I didn't even take time to look up the charges because I'm pretty sure they didn't give them the severity of the charges that we see in Cincinnati. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this video in the comments. Y'all see the number 919-587-7782. Thank y'all for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And as always, peace and blessings. And as the scripture says, all things that are hidden shall be revealed, and those things done in secret shall be exposed on the mountaintop.
Let's go, Rich. Let's go. You watching Telehouse Publishing, breaking news coverage. Give you the truth before fake news throw mud in it. Before the jury decide and the judge discover it. You should tune in to Telehouse Publishing. Telehouse Publishing, breaking news coverage. The propaganda grammar, don't believe none of it. Before the jury decide and the judge discover it. You should tune in to Telehouse Publishing. Telehouse Publishing, breaking news coverage. Give you the truth before fake news throw mud in it. Before the jury decide and the judge discover it. You should tune in to Telehouse Publishing.
Negroes have listened to the trickery and the lies and the false promises of the white man now for too